It's good to have you right there with us here on We Connect. And we're going to continue our chat that we're having here with Mr. Somi Hazari, who's a businessman who deals not just with Sri Lanka, but with all of the ASEAN region. Now, let me go back here to the Sri Lanka bit. You were talking about the situation being absolutely sound. And economy-wise also, would you say that this is a good time for Indian businessmen to find a foothold in Sri Lanka?
I would say that, yes, it is. A lot of them have. And those who were there earlier have only increased their presence.
Right. Do the Sri Lankans have a respect for Indian business and Indian businessmen?
Yes, they do. And as I said at the beginning itself, there is a tremendous amount of acceptability and respect of Indian business. And to actually go back one more point on why is actually business so safe, etc. I think Sri Lanka is one country that has been effectively able to stamp out terrorism. Ever since the war ended, I don't think there has been a major incident in Sri Lanka. And why actually businessmen prefer Sri Lanka is because when they say there is a single window clearance where the Sri Lankan government, they have institutions like the BOI, the Board of Investments, which has been enacted through an act of Parliament. So whichever party comes to power, the BOI stays.
Right. But we had a free trade agreement.
Yes.
And I want to draw you out on that. How is that working? Does it still hold good?
Yes, I would say that our free trade agreement, which was signed in 1998, was historic in the sense that it was the first FTA that India signed. And after that, whatever FTAs we have had in place have been modeled on the India-Sri Lanka FTA. But
Somi, was it a good model?
Yeah. I would answer this in two parts. The model was good, but it was flawed. It is flawed. The reason
why how can it be good and flawed?
Okay. Because the procedures were not laid down. The flaw lies there. And then when you have an absence of procedures, each institution or person down the line has the room for his or her own interpretation. Now, when this happens, we are seen as a large country putting up non-tariff barriers for actually whatever reasons. But when the feeling is, when say Sri Lanka is importing almost everything from India, they have a few products to offer us. And if we are to create barriers for this,
it's not fair.
It's not fair. One. Two, yes, in the agreement, like all agreements, there is a clause which says that if any country feels that this product should be hurting the local industry, then of course this can be reviewed. Fine. I mean, we don't want our local industry to suffer. But again, you have to look at it in a slightly broader perspective, and then see if there has been an industry that has been supplying inferior goods at higher rates, then as a consumer, naturally I am not going to keep quiet.
That is also not fair.
But I would say that there were two particular industries which had misused this FTA, and this has been stopped. One was copper and one was vanaspati. So both these were not originating from Sri Lanka, but if you look at the criteria which qualifies a good for certificate of origin from Sri Lanka, says that as long as the value addition is 35%, it can qualify. Now, to my mind, and my limited knowledge as I put it, these two goods cannot by any means, legal means, qualify for a value addition up to that extent that is required.
That means you're saying a value add should have happened in India before it went to Sri Lanka?
No. Say, for example, the CPO, the crude palm oil or the palm olein that comes from Malaysia and Indonesia mainly into Sri Lanka, for it to be converted into what we call the hydrogenated fat, which is called, I would say, vanaspati here, bakery shortenings, etc. That value addition, that process should be 35% of actually value addition.
Right.
Now, in this calculation again, there is a clause which can be debatable because you can add a certain amount, a reasonable amount of profit. Now, what is reasonable to you and me may not be reasonable somewhere else.
Yes, true.
So, see, these are the few things which I say are a bit flawed.
Right.
But in total, this agreement has definitely helped because if you look at the ratio of trade, earlier it was 1:7. Today it is 1:4. So Sri Lanka has also benefited. But when there is a certain industry that feel that their goods are always facing problems at our entry ports, I think that required to be looked in. And in all fairness, the government has taken certain measures. For example, when any food is imported into India, it had to be sent to the CFTRI lab. For Chennai, it had to go all the way to Mysore.
Right.
Now, CFTRI, I'm sorry, took their own time. There was no period of time within which they had to say yes or no, this is bad and why it's bad. So now, and of course, they did not believe in modern methods of communication like fax or email or phone. They still believe, or courier. They believed in the good old registered post.
Come on, in this day and age, I mean, this sounds absolutely ridiculous as you're saying it to me.
Yes.
Somi, I'm going to ask you to just hang on because we just need to take another very brief, quick break on the show. But we'll be right back with you here on WeConnect, so please don't go anywhere.